Swami Kriyananda tells a story taken from Indian mythology. It's about three characters. Their names are Indra, Virojana, and Prajapati. Indra, the king of the gods, Virojana, the king of the demons, and Prajapati, the supreme lord. One day, Indra and Virojana find out that whoever discover the true nature of his own self can become the Lord of the whole universe. And so they're very happy about this news. The king of demons says, wow, finally I will be able to get make all the gods, these arrogant gods, into my slaves. That's good news. Indra, the king of the gods, says, oh, I'm so happy, finally, some good news, finally we will be able to convert these demons with supreme love, with divine love. So both go to Prajapati, the Supreme Lord, and ask him, so what is the secret of the self? What is the nature of the true self? And Prajapati says, yes, okay, it's easy, find it out. But you must go to the first and for 32 years you have to do ascesis, austerities, and meditation. And those, in terms of the gods, 32 years was just nothing. So they go to the forest, perform 32 years of very intense sadhana, spiritual practice, and after 32 years, they go back to Prajapati and they ask him again, Lord, Supreme Lord, what is then finally the nature, the true nature of our self? And Prajapati says, yes, okay, I'll tell you now. Just for a second, go to the river and look into this, and mirror yourself in the river. And they do so, and they see the calm waters, and they see their hairs long after 32 years of austerities. They have long beards, ragged clothes. Okay, they see what they see, and they return to Prajapati. So now, okay, that's good, but now you must go to comb your hair, to cut your hair, to get ready to trim your beard and to put on beautiful clothes. And that's what they do. They do so. After that, they go back to Prajapati and they say, yes. And he says, okay, that's your true self. So they're very happy. Finally, we understand what their real self is. And they leave again and they go back. Vibroshana goes back to the world of demons, and Indra, as he is on his way back to the world of the gods, he begins to doubt, and he says, something here is not quite right. How is it possible that this is my real self? Is first I looked at myself in the river, and I had the appearance of an ascetic, and now I'm still myself. Now I'm dressed of king. Which of the two is then my real self? But Virojana, of course, is very happy and says, okay, this is my real self. And here Swami inserts a little comment, and he says, this is why from that moment on, all people, all materialistic people, narcissistic people, not very enlightened people are convinced that their own appearance, their own body, is the supreme reality, the highest reality. So Indra, with this doubt, goes back to Prajapati and says, tell me something, explain me something to me. And Prajapati, usually calmness with his usual peace, he says, okay, my dear one, I'm happy that you have had this intuition, this higher intuition. You're quite right. This is not your higher self. There is a higher reality as well. So go to the forest again for another 32 years, and at the end of those 32 tapasya, austerity, I will reveal who you really are. Prajapati goes there. Indra does his 32 years, performs his 32 years of meditation and does everything he has to do, returns to Prajapati and says, so, who am I really? And Prajapati says, this is what you are. Indra, you are Indra. And Prajapati says, okay, so I'm not my body, I'm my personality. Very good, finally I understand. He starts his journey again after 64 years on his way back to the world of gods. And again, he starts to doubt. And how is this possible? There's something else that I don't understand. I'm not the one who I was 32 years ago. I have changed. My thoughts have changed. My personality has changed. This can't be me, my real self, the self that does not change. So again, he returns to Prajapati, and Prajapati says, very good, my dear Indra, I'm so happy that you've had this comprehension, this higher understanding. Now, guess what you need to do now to get to higher understanding? Go again to the forest and perform 32 more years of austerities. At the end of those 32 years, what happens? Indra he doesn't even go to Prajapati because he understands that he is Prajapati, that he is that essence that doesn't change. He is the Supreme Lord. What I like about this story is that especially two elements that are connected with what we have read today, the reading of today's reading. The first is the fact that, as Krishna says, all beings, in whatever some way, are on the path that leads to me. That both the demons and the gods, they are on this path of research. What is the difference? Well, some beings don't really go beyond. They get a first grasp of understanding and they momentarily stop there to explore that layer. Others, layers after layers, lives after lives, have arrived to a higher understanding, but all, including the ones that are apparently less evolved, are looking, are seeking, are on a path of an ever more complete manifestation of this wonderful self of light that is present, as Jaya did before, is present in each one of us, regardless of our behaviors, which is maybe not always at the same height of the deeper self. Another aspect of the story that I like is the Prajapati. When Indra returns, he doesn't say, you see, you idiot, you were left me and you didn't even really understand like mirrors. He says, he encourages, he says, that's very good, you understand, you've made a step forward. You are also that what you thought you were before, but you're also something more than that. So there's this complete acceptance from the part of the divine of the fact that it takes time. It does take time. It takes steps. It is a itinerary, a path, so that we can reclaim, as Yogananda says in the Bhagavad Gita, the reign, the kingdom of what we really are. On this path, how long or how short it may be, however long or short it may be, it's not without, beyond our grasp. It does not depend on something that is outside of us. So beautiful how this, reading this theme, having it now at the end of the year, where many of us are sort of making up the balance of this past year. How did my life go this year? So wonderful to be enjoying your first year. How did I go last year? Especially, what do I want to manifest in the new year? What lessons do I want to bring with me? And this, substantially, what does it mean? It means that how do I want to use each day, each moment of the new year to go on, to move on this path of discovery of who I really am and why. Because that is where our greatest joy lies, our supreme goal. It's all that it's everything that we are looking for in everything we do. We seek love, we seek joy, we seek serenity. And the scriptures have always said, you are that already, not just you have it, you are all these things. So the greatest thing you can propose yourself for the new year is to get ever closer to the discovery, to the manifestation of that divine reality. Swami Kriyananda says, and it's a beautiful image to explain how this happens. He says, in a room there may be a few people sitting quietly and others making a loud noise. One tends to notice not the quiet ones, but the noisemakers. That is what you notice, right? As soon as somebody starts crying, you don't hear the name. Okay, that is how the Divine Presence dwells in us, unobserved amidst the babble of our restless thoughts, the hubbub of sense impressions. But that presence is with us just the same, ever silently awaiting our inward attention, our dedicated love. We have only to answer the ancient invitation of divine love to our souls. Messages sent to us on waves of every noblest dream and aspiration. And so for the new year, this is very good. Listen to the whispering of this presence that is already within us. Listen always deeper to this presence. So how? How can we do that? This how obviously is different for each one of us individuals, because we are all at a different point in our evolution, our lives. We have different challenges to face. What does Swami say in this reading? Can you remember? He says, observe life of the great ones, those who have already reached the end of the path. Learn from them. And so today I would like to see some of those characteristics of the great ones, the great souls, the great saints, to take inspiration, maybe one or two of these things for the new year, for our new. One characteristic that I have noticed in these great souls is that they are all rebels. They do not accept the status quo around them or within them. You hear so many people say, oh, well, okay, the world, that's how it is. The ecology is a disaster. We can't do anything. Everybody is playing with his cellular phone. There's no real communication. And people are sort of resigning in all that. You hear it a lot. And even in myself, I say by myself, even I resign. This is just the way I am, this aspect of mine. I've been like this. I've tried to change it for years. And sometimes we just give up. The great ones never accept. They know, they see with vision the potentials of their lives, the potential of their own self, and do not resign. And they say, as long as I live, as long as I can, I will act to change myself and to change my circumstances. These are rebels. One day I was speaking with Swami Kriyananda and about some of my friends here in the community. They were at that period, they were being very rebellious, but in a way that was not really necessarily constructive, because you can be rebellious where you are just saying what you think, but the way of the saints is I rebel to that which does not work for me. I rebel to anything that is not the maximum highest expression of light. And so Swami Kriyananda said, yes, I attract rebels. I attract people with a strong personality, and I myself am a rebel, but I am a rebel with a cause, not a rebel without a cause. I know I'm a rebel who knows what the potential, where the light is, and how to say it, and he makes sure that everything moves in that direction. Yogananda says, never give up. If you have lost hope to ever be happy, cheer up. Cheer up, because he says, your soul is the reflection of the ever-joyous Spirit. It is the happiness itself. So is everything around you says, well, happiness is not possible for you. The world is going every way. My life is terrible. Do not resign. Swami says, don't think that the conditions that are now keeping you, that your this difficult circumstances now cannot be changed. What you can do as from that inner center work to change whatever part of your personality is keeping you prisoner, and command those tendencies to be what you want to be. Be there. So that could be your first ideal for the new year. You say, I want to be the change. I do not want to resign to my old habits. I want to decide. I want to be the one to decide how to move on towards this inner luminous self, even going against majority of the people. Swami has written and said many times, he even wrote a song about it. Sometimes you have to move on alone. And that's what the great saints do. The second point, the second characteristic that I have seen that many great saints have in common. First of all, they are rebels who do not resign. But the other one is different, but something. They are greedy and insatiable. They are not content. They are never content with anything less than perfection. There's a particular story in Autobiography Yogi. Maybe if you've read the book, when Yogananda basically runs away from his guru and seeks out Ram Gopal Muzumdar, this great yogi, from whom he wants to receive blessings and enlightenment. And after a long adventure, before he could find this saint and walking under the sun, and the heat blazing heat of sun, then he finally finds this yogi and he has a conversation with him. And he asks him for the illumination. And now listen to this, which is really incredible. The yogi says, you are asking illumination from me, while I am wandering, inconsiderable as I am, and with the little meditation I have done. If I have succeeded in pleasing God, and what worth I may find in His eyes at the final reckoning. Sir, have you not been single-heartedly seeking God for a long time? Said Yogananda. And he says, I haven't done much. For 20 years I occupied a secret grotto, meditating 18 hours a day. Then I moved to a more inaccessible cave and remained there for 25 years, entering the yoga union for 20 hours daily. I did not need sleep, for I was ever with God. Yogananda then exclaims, my God, you have goodness, you have meditated for so long and yet are unsure of the Lord's favor? I gazed at him in an astonishment, says Yogananda. Then what about us poor mortals? And the yogi then says, well, don't you see, my dear boy, that God is eternity itself? Do not fix your spiritual ideal on a small mountain, but hitch it to the star of unqualified divine attainment. If you work hard, you will get there. What is our objective? Is it a small hill, like an ant's hill? Or is it the star of divine attainment? Let's ask ourselves this question before we start the new year. I remember quite a few years ago, 2 ladies came here. They were very nice, very good people. They were already meditating a lot. And one of them said to me, I'm not interested in Kriya Yoga. I already feel a lot of peace when I meditate. And that is maybe the attitude that we too have. I already have results. It works. I do the energization exercise and I feel vital. I feel recharged for the rest of the day. I perform hatha. I do hatha yoga. My body is really quite flexible, but there is so much more. Meditation doesn't just give us key. Kriya Yoga wants to free us completely of all our karmic bonds. It wants to give us union with God. Why should we be content with anything less than that? Even though peace itself, of course, is a wonderful result. Why not go? Why not move beyond the energization exercises? About them, Yogananda said, if you really understand that principle, you can even learn how to make a new arm or leg grow. There's so much more. We talk about having a little bit more energy, but there's so much more. So let's not be content with it. The same with Hatha Yoga. Yes, certainly, it gives you a flexible, healthy body, but Hatha Yoga wants to take us to God, to really get in touch with higher states of consciousness. So that's another great message of the great saints for the new year, to not be content, happy with anything less than divine, and to never give up at the same time. Don't give up with the first obstacle. Of course, there will be obstacles, but move on. Again, Swami Kriyananda says, it's not a sign of spirituality not to be tempted. Don't ever be disappointed, never to be disappointed or never to fail. This usually happens to the people who climb anthills instead of high mountains. The real sign of spirituality is that with every obstacle that comes, the determination to move on until you reach success grows. And with each obstacle, new energy comes until all opposition has been destroyed. So before we start the new year, ask yourself, am I really climbing an anthill, or am I in the new year? Can I set my ideal a little bit higher? And especially if I can take away that within me that makes me believe that I can't get higher, that I don't even want to get higher, and that those little voices that says it's difficult, you don't deserve it, you've never been able so far, and so on. What else then are the great souls that Yogananda, that Swami Kriyananda asks us to take for an example? Well, they're alcoholics. They're spiritual alcoholics, Yogananda calls us. What does that mean? It means that they are drunk, passionate, they can't do without, with that divine contact, that contact with the highest divine say. This is a matter of life and death for them. It's a deep part of their lives, and they would never renounce it for anything else in the world. Try to wonder, ask yourself, am I a spiritual alcoholic? Do I want to be it in the new year? If there is anything, maybe I could have a little bit more passion in my spiritual practices. This is what they have. They have passion. Yogananda, while his friends were playing or going to the cinema, he would meditate for hours. And this is not natural for everyone, but to find something that you can really make you passionate about life in general and about your spiritual search in particular. This is very important for the new year, because when you have this passion, then discipline will also come more easily. Even just the willingness to meditate, to commit yourself to that and all those things. Swami then again says, he uses a beautiful image. He says, what can you do, I ask, if your dog is holding your slipper in his mouth? You may try a little diplomacy at first, but if that doesn't work, try offering him something tastier to chew on than that slipper. He'll quickly drop it in favor of the gourmet special. That is how you might treat your mind when it holds fast to a bad habit. Don't coax it. Don't even beat it. Offer it something tastier in exchange. That is what these saints who are drunk with God, they fall in love with their higher self. They are in love. They are passionate, ardent, until the ego doesn't, as long as the ego doesn't understand that there is something higher, much more pleasant, it will not give up the old. Because he finds no reason. Yogananda says the best way to overcome temptation is to have something more fulfilling with which to compare it. So again, for the new year, how can I fall in love with my higher self? How can I become more passionate about my spiritual practice? Jaya just has written a book of meditation that will probably come out sometime in spring. And it's very beautiful because it gives the teachings of Yogananda, finding many new ways of practicing Hong So. For example, a technique that seems to be made in one way, you find many different ways that make you more enthusiastic about it. Or if your Kriya has become a little arid, speak with a teacher of Kriya, with a Kriya chair. Find a way of getting passionate about it again. The fourth that I think these have in common, they are in love, not just with God, but even with themselves. Well, with their higher self. Not the love of the body, your hair style, taking care of your appearance. No, that they are in love with their higher self, with the capital, the God within them. How do they manifest that love? With a sense of great respect for themselves. A respect that means to avoid anything that does not work, that does not function. Avoid anything that from which they know that it hurts them. Yogananda says, the majority of people live a life checkered with sadness and sorrow. They do not avoid the actions which lead to suffering and do not follow the ways which lead to happiness. There are very few people who, after burning their fingers in the fire of ignorance, learn to avoid misery-making acts. This is what the great souls have learned really well. They are intransigent. They're nice. They're available. Swami Kriyananda was the most gracious person, the kindest person in the world, but in a responsible way. He knew how to take care of his own energy, of his meditations, and also of his rest if he needed to rest. Once I asked him some counsel, personal counsel on how to have a more balanced life, and he said, I never do anything that will take my inner peace away. That means being in love with the higher self and protect it. Do that which is really right to do. And that means also to discipline yourself. A word discipline is not a word that we really like, but that's just a part of it. When you are in love with the self, then these things, this discipline becomes a joy. Like when you take care of people that you love, then it's no longer an effort, it becomes joy, it becomes love. And Swami Kriyananda says, he's used a particular image. He says, many people today, young people especially, insist on flowing freely, life's passing currents. But this sort of freedom never comes without discipline. This sort of freedom never comes without discipline. Freedom to flow. Think of the surfboard rider. His ability to ride the waves depends on his degree of self-control. The inept surfer doesn't flow with the currents. He tumbles with them. The wise person disciplines himself in the name of growing freedom. Freedom is the power Freedom is the power, carefully developed by effort and self-discipline. It is the power to act always for one's own and for others' highest welfare, to be influenced never by bad habits or delusion. There's another possible thing you might do in the new year. Maybe there is something in the new year where you can exercise a bit more discipline to get closer to your inner self, to get closer to my inner center. And then the last point that is characteristic of the great saint. Oh, it's so difficult. You can't cover everything, but what have the great souls in common? It's joy. They are joyful. Swami once quoted the great saint. He said, a saint who is sad is really a sad saint. A true saint is never heavy. He doesn't feel sadness or pain when he needs to grow, when he on his way to God. There's always some level of joy because the contact with God is there. This joy is there. Yogananda says, if you are happy or you're looking for happiness, then you're beating your own purpose, defeating your own purpose. So the search for God has to be joyful. So again, find that which makes it lighter, more pleasant. Yogananda once gave a lot of example. We have now published a booklet. It's Laughing with Yogananda. Try to see how the divine search and must be light. Even Sri Yukteswar, who was the most austere one of all our gurus, he would poke fun at people who were too serious and solemn all the time. He would say, in order to find the Lord, you don't need to make a sad face. Remember that finding God means the funeral of all your worries. Swami Kriyananda said, lived truly in the self, with no attachment to the body and the physical world, is a life full of joy in everything. One never sees a highly advanced yogis turning away in disgust from a glorious sunset, or greeting children's laughter with a stifled yawn. All things delight him, for he knows himself no longer limited or defined by anything. There's another one. And then the last one, maybe there is some part of your life where you can become a little lighter, where you can keep your discipline a little bit more, your love for God, but also find a way to make it lighter, to make your road path to God lighter and more humorous. And so I'd like to put all these things together now and end my talk. Maybe it's not all that inspiring in the new year, just saying, I want to be a rebel, alcoholic, unsatiable, etc., etc. So maybe we can use words from Kriyananda, which is his vow for superconscious life. And so we'll do a little part of that now. He calls it a vow, and he starts by saying, I vow. If that's too much, I will say, I commit myself, or I open up to, or I choose. But the vow that you do with this wonderful self within that wants to express itself and give you real joy. So if you want, you can repeat after me either out loud or in silence. It's only part of it. I vow from this day forth to be true to my higher superconscious self, to be a channel of light, of love and blessings for all, to live in joy, not sorrow, in truth, not error, in victory, not failure, and to accept, with God's help, responsibility for changing myself. And with this, I would like to wish you a new year filled with light, with power, of your own higher self, the power to change yourselves, your life, and with that the whole world. Have a happy few other days of the year, and Happy New Year.